You can usually spot them without realizing it. They were the mature kid, the one adults praise, the one teachers love, while all the children were arguing over toys. They were mediating the argument, while all the kids were scared of the dark. They were scared of disappointing someone. Maybe that was you. Maybe you were the child who packed your own lunch, who reminded your parent about appointments, who learned very early that crying didn't fix anything, but being useful did. People call you responsible, independent, or soft, but no one asked why you had to be. No one wondered what it costs a child to become emotionally fluent before they even understand their own feelings. Because from the outside, growing up fast looks impressive. From the inside, it feels like skipping something you can never quite go back and find. Let's talk about what really happens to a child who grows up too fast. Growing up too fast doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it doesn't involve visible trauma, no headlights, no sirens. Sometimes it's quieter than that. It's the child who becomes the emotional support system in the house, the one who notices when mom is overwhelmed, who learns that most like weather patterns. Cloudy means stay quiet, stormy means disappear, sunny means now is the time to ask for something. Psychologists call one version of this parentification, when a child takes on roles and responsibilities that are developmentally inappropriate. But before we get clinical, let's stay human. Imagine being 8 years old and already knowing that your feelings are secondary, that your job is to stabilize the room. Children are not supposed to manage adult emotions, but some do, beautifully, efficiently, silently. And here's the strange part. They often grow up highly competent. Research in developmental psychology shows that children who take on early responsibility can develop advanced emotional intelligence and problem-solving skills. They return shapes, micro-expressions, body language. They anticipate needs before they're spoken. In adulthood, this looks like being the reliable one, the friend who always shows up, the coworker who fixes anything before anyone notices it's broken. But competent view from survival has a different texture than competent view from safety. One is expensive, the other is vigilant, and vigilant doesn't look out. Have you ever feel responsible for other people's moods? Like if someone is upset in the room, it somehow becomes your fault to fix it. The free place isn't random. When a child grows up too fast, their nervous system adapts. It learns that harmony equals safety, and safety equals survival. According to attachment theory, children who experience emotional inconsistency become hyper-attuned to relational cues. They become experts in monitoring connection, because when connection feels unstable, you watch it constantly. But here's the paradox. As adults, these individuals often struggle to identify their own needs. Ask them what they want. They hesitate. Ask them what you need. They answer immediately. Why? Because their developmental blueprint trained them to scan outward, not inward. And over time, that outward scanning can disconnect them from themselves. There's also something called self-silencing. Research suggests that children who grow up in environments where their emotions are minimized or burdensome learn to move themselves to resolve relationships. They become agreeable, flexible, easygoing, until they aren't, because suppressed needs don't disappear. They accumulate, and sometimes they emerge as exhaustion, or resentment, or a sudden, confusing withdrawal from relationships that once felt essential. Have you ever noticed how some people seem incredibly strong and then suddenly burn out completely? That's often not weakness. That is a nervous system that has been in performance mode for decades. Growing up too fast also affects identity formation. Erik Erikson described adolescence as a critical stage for exploring identity. But what happens when you skip past of childhood exploration because you were too busy being responsible? You may grow up knowing how to function, but not knowing who you are. You may excel as achievement, but feel oddly detached from joy, because play wasn't prioritized, curiosity wasn't safe, mistakes were affordable, so perfection becomes protection. If you were the child who grow up too fast, you may notice this pattern. You struggle to relax. You feel guilty resting. You equate work with usefulness. And when someone tries to take care of you, you feel uncomfortable. Receiving feels unfamiliar. Dependence feels dangerous. Because early on, dependence may have come with unpredictability. Let's talk about relationships. Adults who grew up too fast often oscillate between hyper-independence and deep longing for closeness. They want intimacy, but they don't want to burn anyone. They crave support, but they don't trust it fully. So they become sufficient to afford. They pay their own bills, solve their own crises, carry their own emotional weight. And sometimes everyone else do. But inside, there can be a quiet question. If I stop being strong, will anyone stay? That question rarely gets spoken out loud. Another layer? Grief. Not dramatic grief. Subtle grief. The grief of childhood that feel more like training than living. The grief of never quite knowing that it feels like to be carefree. You may feel nostalgic for something you can't fully name. A softness you didn't get to keep. A lightness that feels boring. And here's something important. Growing up too fast doesn't mean you are broken. In fact, many of these individuals develop extraordinary strengths. They are adaptable, resilient, deeply empathetic. Studies on post-traumatic growth show that individuals who endure early adversity often develop heightened appreciation for meaning, relationships, and purpose. The strength born from necessity carries scars. The key difference? Choice. When you grow up too fast, you didn't choose your strength, you adapted. And sometimes healing isn't about becoming stronger. It's about allowing yourself to become softer. It's about learning that you are allowed to have needs, that you are allowed to disappoint people. That love doesn't have to be earned through usefulness. It's about slowly retraining a nervous system that learned adulthood before adolescence, and that retraining takes time. Before, when a child grows up too fast, they don't just lose years, they lose permission to be messy, to be unsure, to be taken care of. But here's the hurtful part. The same awareness that once kept you safe can now help you heal. You already know how to read a room. Now you can learn to read yourself. You already know how to retake others. Now you can learn to rotate your own energy. You already survived responsibility. Now you get to practice receiving. And maybe, just maybe, growing up too fast doesn't have to define you forever. Maybe it simply explains you. A child who grows up too fast doesn't disappear. They become the adult who handles everything, who doesn't make a scene, who says it's fine, even when it isn't. But beneath that steadiness is a quiet history, not of weakness, of adaptation. If this story feels familiar, maybe it's not because you were too serious or too sensitive. Maybe it's because you were strong before you were ready. And straight at the wrong time leaves an imprint. But here's something gentle to consider. You are allowed to outgrow survival. You are allowed to reclaim slowness, to learn play, to receive care without proving you deserve it. The child who grows up too fast doesn't need to be erased. They need to be met with patience, with compassion, with understanding that growing up is not the same as growing whole. If this resonates with you, stay with conversations like this. Sometimes healing begins not with fixing, but with finally being understood.